Last time we talked a little bit about what talent science is, kind of how you chose the positions that were top talent, how it could work for you, the ROI, and figured there's a little bit more to this software, a little bit more to these analytics and predictive analytics, and what else does it do? So
what doesn't it do, Melissa?
Yeah.
What doesn't it do? So good afternoon in the East Coast. Happy to be here today, and it's a little chilly in the room we are in. So if you see Melissa start moving around or reach for a cup of tea, you'll know why.
If you saw that previous webinar, the open enrollment one, you might actually see me shudder a few times. I wasn't nervous, I was freezing, so that's all it was.
All right, let's crack on.
Okay.
So we're talking about more Infor Talent Science. Specifically, what we're talking about and what the title is taking your organization to the next level. So you gave me this title about 2 weeks ago and said, hey, Ollie, we'd love for you to come back in and pitch on taking our organization to the next level and how to utilize talent science for it. So I started thinking about, well, what should we talk about? Because there's a bunch of stuff we can talk about when it comes to taking your organization to the next level. We could show some really cool software, because the software itself super intuitive, super easy, and we could show software about how you can use talent science to be more intelligent and predictive about how you develop your current people, right? That's interesting.
Yeah.
We could talk about or show some software about how you can use talent science to more effectively promote the people that are in your business into leadership positions or into a talent map rather than just talent mobility. Interesting. And we also, I thought, maybe we could talk about how you use this in the selection process to hire better people.
So you're hitting all of those talent management modules, right?
Yeah.
Your succession, your talent acquisition.
Isn't it funny how that works?
Imagine that.
Yeah. So I thought there's a bunch of stuff that we could talk about, but it's kind of at the tactical level. So I thought what might make sense is, rather than looking at some specific pieces of software, right? Because we can do that anytime, and I'm happy to give anybody a demo if you want to see a demo. But what I thought we could do is talk big picture on talent science, because the whole concept of talent science is focused on taking a company to the next level, right? So we back up and think, what is talent science? It's a behavioral assessment, right? It's a way of utilizing software to predict people. And the whole idea is that if you can predict the people coming into your business from a candidate selection perspective, or the people in your business from a candidate or employee management perspective, if you can better understand them and better manage them, then you will be able to
take the organization to the next level, or at least change the organization. Because a lot of people, they know they're not in a great place now, but they don't know where they want to get to, because they're just kind of fighting fires all the time. And I think just to kind of breathe a little bit and understand this is not optimal. How can I get closer to optimal? I might not be perfect, but what's going to help get me closer to optimal?
Right. Because if you think about it, regardless of size of organization, if you've got 10,000 employees, if you've got 50,000 employees, executives are always thinking about how, healthcare, how can I ensure my nurses are delivering the premium care possible? Or in retail, how can I ensure that when the customer walks into a shop or a store, they're getting the service they require and they buy the goods that we want them to buy? Or if it's a restaurant, or if it's a B2B sales organization, how do I make sure my guys are challenging? How do I make sure my guys are selling more stuff?
And every organization has their mission statement. They have their values and their goals, and theoretically that is what they strive toward. In performance and goals, those are the goals that their employees are basically appraised on. And generally a lot of times they're not easy to attain, because you sometimes just need to have warm bodies filling seats to be able to run your business.
Correct. And so that's what we do. We help organizations to tie the executive level strategy of, how do I make sure my people are doing X? How do I make sure my people align with my core values? Those are the fundamental questions that talent science helps organizations to address. And it's not easy, right? It's not easy stuff to do. If it was, then you wouldn't need a concept called talent science. And so, as arduous as it sounds for a Tuesday afternoon, we're going to have to get into some science and some stats I'm going to try and keep it lively.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, it does all come
Trust
down
you,
to.
'cause that sounds super fun.
I love it. It's great. So anyway, let's crack on. So before we go into too much detail on
Science.
Science, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Microscope. Everyone always freaks out. Are you putting me under the microscopic lens? So good news, we're not putting you under the microscopic lens. What we're trying to help organizations figure out is how do we get so precise around what success looks like in your business that we can easily replicate it.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's science that's going to help us get there.
Right.
But our whole goal in life, like who we are, as you can see on the screen, is we're a predictive talent analytics company. So our job is to help your customers, our customers, predict people. If we can do that well, then we're going to help you to fundamentally change your business. We're going to very carefully tell you these are the behaviors that are driving the outcomes that you're looking for in your business. So whether it's better patient care, whether it's more sales, whether it's better service, whatever it is, we're going to help you and understand what behaviors are driving those outcomes and then enable you to consistently replicate it across your talent pools. And if we do that well, the whole idea is you will see very measurable and meaningful results, right? So if we help you to hire better people, what happens?
You're more efficient, you have better either sales, you have better customer service, depending on just what the level is of the employee.
Yeah.
It can filter down, especially when you get that in your leadership positions.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So that's the results that we deliver. You do see better employees in the role, so you sell more, you deliver better patient care, you deliver better customer service, you become more efficient with your hiring practices. All good things, but all of them very measurable. But what we commit to doing it I'll step back. It's just very easy, very intuitive. I mean, this is the 21st century. It's modern, it's mobile enabled, it's beautiful software. So it's thumbs up, thumbs down. It's super, super easy.
Yelp reviews, Uber reviews.
Yeah. The whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
Glassdoor, everything. Yeah. So this is what we're talking about today. But let's go to just to refresh on taking organizations to the next level. So this is what we've focused on, and we've helped a lot of companies get a ton of press for this. So again, organizations are utilizing our software to help them get to the next level. They see a vision, they want to double sales in 3 years, they want to drive better patient care into their business, they want to be a leader in customer service, whatever it is. They come to us and say, these are the goals that we have, and we help them get on media because of the results we deliver to them, which is...
That is, it brings that name recognition, unpaid advertising essentially for them when they're sitting
and for us.
And for you,
yeah, exactly, which is nice. So we help them to, so Foot Locker is one of our favorite customers. They're great guys out in New York City. We help them to consistently hire people who are sneakerheads. So when they came to us, they said, "Hey, look, the retail world is changing. Amazon is causing a lot of disruption in the retail world. We've got to change the game and make sure that when a customer comes into our shops, they're really engaged with our sneakerheads.
It's an experience as opposed to just going and getting a pair of size 8, Nikes or Reeboks or I'm not going to brand anything, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so we help them to figure out, okay, what does this person look like that's going to fully engage the customer when they walk in, and then also deliver the experience that you can't get online. I mean, let's face it, when you're buying a shoe, you've got a lot of advantages if you're in person.
Right. I mean, as athletes or runners, I know a big thing in some of the shoe sales type of organization is, what do you do in the shoe? Let me get you the right shoe for your foot. Let me get you the right shoe for your sport. And you can't do that online.
Right.
You're pouring through tons of reviews and you're like, I don't
how does it fit?
This is going to be good for me. I need to run around in something. I need to, have some sort of professional who knows shoes tell me what is good for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So talking about taking their business to the next level, like we help them to define what does this sneakerhead look like? This person that's going to be great when it comes to interaction with the customer. We determine the behaviors that would drive that and then enable them to consistently replicate those behaviors for candidates coming into the business so they hired a better quality person and also help them to coach and develop their current staff to be more aligned with the sneakerhead mentality. Okay. And it was a great story and the results were significant. let's just say they're very happy customers.
Yep.
But I mean, we do that kind of work with a lot of our customers. I mean, some of our customers who operate in very male-dominated environments, like construction space, we help them to drive diversity, and that's why we're on the cover of the Atlantic Journal.
I remember we were talking about that because I was saying, my husband's in construction, and it is a very generally male-dominated place. And last year or so, I've been hearing about a lot of females joining his office, which I was like, oh, that's awesome. A lot of interns, people coming out of school. So, getting that word out there that, it's okay to hire a woman, and they do, just as good a job in construction if they're experienced and they have the education and.
But that's what it's all about. I mean, if you want to take your organization to the next level, you do have to start thinking differently.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so difficult to think differently about your talent from your own perspective. If you just look at your business in the same lens as you've always looked at it, how are you going to replicate, a different type of person? And so that's where talent science can come in. It uses data to help you kind of get an objective perspective on what success looks like, and then enables you to go out into the big broad world and find people that you probably wouldn't normally consider and bring them into your business. So some of the challenges that we're helping other organizations with, particularly in the FinServ space, I don't know if you saw this, it was on Thursday on CNBC, Goldman Sachs was talking about how they're now utilizing personality assessments to hire their people. And their challenge is, when they go to universities or colleges, the college campuses, they go to the same Ivy League colleges. And they hire, it is very competitive. They're looking for candidates, the same candidates as Deloitte has, as Accenture, as McKinsey, as Booz Allen, and they're all looking for the same candidates. And so the pool is very small. And so how we can help them is build an objective perspective on what success looks like, enable them to assess candidates against that concept, and then identify candidates that they wouldn't normally consider. Because one of the biggest things that we're finding in that college recruitment concept is that cognitive horsepower doesn't necessarily equal success.
Okay.
Like when you're applying for a job at Citi or at Goldman or at McKinsey or at Accenture, everyone's smart, right? That's not a differentiator. It's just something that you have to have.
Yeah.
And so how we're helping them to take their business forward is we're helping them to understand what's at the raw behaviors.
Yeah, because it's hard when they don't have experience, they don't have any kind of track record. That's all you have to go on is, those scores, how they graduate, where they graduate from, and you hope that because they've been successful in this one environment over here, that they'll be successful in this wildly different environment in, the real world.
Right.
So,
I mean, think about nursing, right? When you come out of nursing school, how do you know if they're going to be successful at all? They don't have a long pedigree or of resume to go from.
Right.
It's based off of what they've learned in school and who they are. So imagine if you could have a much more concrete evidence to challenge your own subjective opinions on who will be successful and help you to look more broadly across the talent pool and consider better talent.
Okay.
We're getting off track. My apologies.
It's okay.
Great story.
Got some time?
Got some time. That's right.
Got some time.
Let me tell you about just real quickly to say, hey, we do this for a living and we do it with a lot of great companies. I mean, we're in huge numbers of hospital systems using our software to predict nursing, to predict care staff, to predict everything from people who are on the floor all the way up through the organization. We work with a ton of financial services companies. We work with public sector within ambulatory care, within rehabilitation care. So we've got a ton of different customers. And what's interesting is that all of them are using this concept to take their organization to the next level. Because what they've been doing is they've been operating under this assumption that we can hire to this type of person. But if they keep hiring from the same gene pool, they're never going to get significantly better. So what we help them do is say, okay, this is where you were. What we're going to do is help you to get from there to here, to here, and to here. Now, there's a lot of conversations we can have about, change in an organization, because what you're talking about is, how do you get organizations to the next level?
Right.
We'd love to tell you that we can get you from here to here in 3 months.
Right. Well, yeah. You can't even get the board to pass anything at most places in 3 months. So
right.
You can't change an organization structure and personality and goal in 3 months.
Right.
So, yeah.
So as much as I'd love to tell you it's easy,
so then
it's not.
How long are you seeing, depending on an average size, maybe an 8,000 person company? What's that roadmap kind of look like?
So it depends on the change, right? So, you can get this thing implemented pretty quickly. So you can get this thing implemented in 8 weeks. And once it's implemented, it's going to start changing the gene pool of person that you hire, right? So the impact is pretty immediate.
Okay.
But what we typically work with you on is figuring out how quickly do you want to make that change. If you try and go from selling widgets to selling relationships, like overnight, good luck. It ain't ever going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to take incremental steps to get there. So if the end goal is from widgets to relationships, that could be a 3-year process.
Right.
It's an evolution.
Right.
What we would recommend, if you want us to, we could try and get, but it's going to be unsuccessful.
Okay.
The story, what I always think back to is like, it's a really bad example, but CrossFit, there's a ton of people out there that do CrossFit.
Right.
So you wake up January 5th, you try and say, I'm going to do better this year, I'm going to work out, I'm going to eat better, I'm going to lose 50 pounds, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And then you go to the CrossFit and you work really hard for a week and a half, and then you hurt your back. And fast forward 6 months later, you're in exactly the same position, right? So you can't wake up one day and say, right, I'm at 10 million and I'm going to be at $50 million in 6. Realistically, it's not going to happen. And so it's just about being sensible. If you plan growth organically and plan intelligently to take incremental steps towards your goal, you're going to get there. And that's what we can help you do. We can help you to say, okay, hey, here, this is what an ideal employee looks like. They have this particular DNA. They do X, Y, and Z. What we're going to help you to do is get you into a more caring environment so that incrementally you're improving. And then next year, we're going to help you get here. The following year, we're going to help you get here.
There. Okay.
So a ton of examples. One great case study here is United Rentals. So they're in the construction space. They sell heavy equipment software.
Okay.
Their goal was to find challenger salespeople, people who would challenge you more to buy something and ask harder questions. Well, how do you get from someone who's very relationship oriented, which is what the construction space is? It's, hey, I know you, we've done business together, let's continue to do business together. How do you get from that type of mentality to, I'm going to push you really hard to buy more tractors or whatever it is.
Okay, yeah.
So we built a profile off of version 1.0, which is relationship oriented, and we told them what behaviors drive kind of a relationship sale, and then we help them over time to change that towards a challenger sale. And over a kind of a 2 or 3 year iteration process, you can see the change in their profile of the person they hire go from kind of relationship oriented all the way moving over towards a challenger oriented sale.
Wow.
So it's really interesting stuff.
So then how often do you go back and review those profiles to say, hey, we need to pivot now, what's working isn't exactly what we started with, it's, we need to shift it a bit?
Yeah, so a lot. So we do, for some reason this is an interesting space. Like when you buy an ERP software, you don't ask after year one, hey, am I getting value from this? You just kind of say, I'm getting...
I'm paying people, I'm going back to my GL, you're making sure day-to-day business is being run, right?
Right. But for this software, every single customer is asking us at the end of every year, hey, is this stuff working? Like, am I getting to where I need to go? And so we come back at the end of every year and we study the impact that the software has had on the goals that we initially set out for. So if the goal was, we want to hire people who deliver a better level of service or deliver better patient care, whatever it is, let's measure the people that we've helped you hire against that goal to make sure that it's doing what it says on the box.
Okay, and if not, where do you tweak?
And then once we do, we say, okay, now it's time, because you've changed the gene pool, so say you've had it in place for a year, say you've hired, I don't know, 800 people?
800 people,
Yeah,
yes.
say you've hired 800 people. That means you've changed the gene pool of your business. And so now what we can do is we can come back and recalibrate around this concept of the 800 people so that the targets get tighter and tighter, and it enables you to get to the next goal.
Okay.
So year over year, the target gets harder and harder and harder to hit.
Okay.
Make sense?
Makes sense.
So a lot to say. We said a lot. So I wanted to come back and refresh on, so what is it that we do? So again, we help companies to consistently hire, develop, and promote top talent across the business. So where's the flow in the model?
How do we know what define top talent?
Yeah.
What my top talent is for my team isn't going to be necessarily what you feel is for your team.
Exactly. That's the fly in the ointment.
Yeah.
And so when we talk to a lot of organizations about this, whether it's healthcare, whether it's sales, whether it's retail, everyone's got a different opinion on what do I want, right? Is it simply about patient care, or is it about patient care and utilization or effectiveness? Is it about sales, or is it sales and service? And so the biggest thing that we help organizations with is fundamentally understand, what does this mean? Because that's hard, right? Once we can define that, hey, the rest is easy. Like once we know what True North looks like, we can help you to replicate it. But the hardest part is anchoring this here within the organization, because there's so many different viewpoints.
So subjective.
Yeah.
So subjective, right.
Exactly. So ironically, funny we're talking about that, because again, just to refresh on the title, it's taking your organization to the next level. We can't get to the next level until we figure out what top talent means.
Okay.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You ready?
I am.
Okay. You warm?
I am actually. Thank you very much for returning that. He's probably dying. Keith is sweating right. Oh, Keith sweat.
All right. So let's go. So we're talking about behavioral science, right? And there's kind of 3 different schools of thought in how do you identify what great looks like.
Okay.
Right? So there's the traditional model, and this is what's been in place for years, right? Since the 1950s. And the traditional model, I mean, it's okay, right? It's worked for 50 years, so if it's not broken, don't fix it. But the problem with it is that it's largely reliant on subjective opinions.
And the traditional model is?
Performance reviews, performances?
Yeah, it's an industrial psychologist coming in and saying, hey, I know all about your business. I've done this with all of your competitors, and I know that a great nurse has these 6 things. Cool, right? Okay, I'll believe you, right? So that's the traditional approach. We'll take a deeper dive in a minute. So that's one way of skinning the cat. Another way of skinning the cat is you could take an industry best practice, right? So you can go to a company that says, hey, I've got this great test. It measures everything you need to measure about physicians, or about construction sales guys, or about software sales guys, or whatever. So trust me, I've got this test, it works. It's based off of what your competitors are doing. Let's use that.
Okay.
Right?
Not maybe right, because maybe I don't want to do what my competitors are doing if I want to surpass my competitors, right?
Right. Or think of it the other way. What if your competitors aren't being successful? Like, what if you are really trying to change the game and go in a different direction?
Right.
You can't really do that. And so that brings us to the third approach, which is build something custom. So, build something custom, lots of pros.
Yep. Sounds like a ton of maintenance. But then again, that's how.
Yeah, so that's the con to custom, is that yes, it's the most effective, but it's the hardest to get to.
Get to it.
Right? And so it's the kind of invest and reward kind of concept. So let's take a deep dive into all of these, right? So we can kind of peel back the onion and figure out, what's truly going to get you to the best result for your business. So let's talk about the traditional approach. So this is an industrial psychologist coming in. So in this scenario, I'm a psychologist, you're a CNO. Okay? So I'm going to ask you, Melissa, hey, tell me about your best nurses. What do you think success looks like within your best nurses?
Right. And I will give you.
You'll say,
they are enthusiastic, and they're well experienced, and they show up to work every day and on time. There's multiple things that I find in my organization makes a best nurse.
Yeah. Right. We should have rehearsed this better so that we have the actual behaviors. But anyway, the idea is correct, right? Yeah. So as you say, okay, well, I think we need people who are pretty ambitious because we want them to care about their people. But we also want people who are pretty have a lot of energy, because it's not like a 2-hour gig.
Right.
Sometimes our shifts are 10 hours, 12 hours, or so on and so forth. So we say, brilliant, let's help you to find people that look like this. Simple. The problem with the model is that, well, we're pretty complex, right? Like, we're people. And so what happens when you start to increase the number of variables that you measure? It gets more and more difficult, right? So now you want people who are energetic ambitious, but also have mental flexibility. Like they're pretty smart,
Yeah.
right? And so now you start to see the complexity in me bringing my subjective opinions to this world and thinking, okay, this is what we need to find. And so what you end up with is relying on an industrial psychologist to tell you, hey, you know what? These are all the things that your top performers care about. And you know what? I think independence is more important than this organization, which is more important than maturity, which is more important than this, which is more important than that. Like, good luck.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I mean, think about how complex people are, and just trying to build a profile subjectively, pretty difficult.
It's difficult.
Yeah. So that's the challenge with the traditional approach, and that's why it's only been moderately effective. The other concept is, the off the shelf. Like I've built this test for Merck. And so if Merck used it and was successful, let's put it into Pfizer. Great things should happen, right?
Yeah, you would think.
You would hope.
Yeah.
But the problem is Merck is very different to Pfizer, right? They might sell similar drugs, but they have a very different
Culture.
genome, very different culture, very different way of doing business, and they're going in two different directions. So, frankly, it's kind of the lazy way out. Like, hey, it worked. I believe it worked over there from my competitor, so I want to use it here.
Okay.
Like, come
Yeah.
on, right? Because the problem with the model is that all these companies out there would have different assessments that they would utilize. So they'd have a sales test, a customer service test, a store manager test that they built specifically for a competitor.
Organization.
Yeah, and the problem with it is that it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
That means you would have different tests out there for different positions. It'd be clunky for candidates. And it's not built for your company or your culture or your goals at all. It's based off of what the industry.
Somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So, okay, it's easy to implement because you can get that thing live in 2 weeks, but it's not going to predict for what you want it to predict for. So our whole perspective is, let's go with a custom approach, which is the harder part, but it's worth it, right? So the implementation time goes from 2 weeks to 8 weeks. Okay, 6 weeks.
Right.
It's a piece of cake.
Which, you think about an ERP implementation, which is,
Years.
years. So, and you don't get the same return for the ERP.
Right.
You don't get that cool, sexy type of, analytics or anything. You just get a system, hopefully, that runs your business.
Yeah.
And then when you have time, you can put all the cool stuff in later. But having this in the front end will give you stuff that, will help you start making those decisions, that you hope when you buy an ERP, that ERP allows you to start making some of those scalable organizational decisions, and it rarely gets you to that point, at least in the first 5 years. So.
See, that's a very interesting tie-in, because the challenge with this model that we're talking about, the custom model, is that it relies upon data. And if you have a great ERP, you probably have pretty good data. If you don't have a great ERP, it might be more difficult to find that data. So you're spot on. Like, you buy an ERP to manage your business, you buy this software to help you elevate your business to the next level, but they are multi-dependent. So we can go into that in a lot more detail. But basically, our whole concept with building a custom profile is that you need data to build predictive engines. Like, my opinion, predictive. Like, when I woke up this morning, it was cloudy. I kind of predicted it was going to rain.
Yeah, and it's raining.
It's raining.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that was kind of intuition. I don't know if that was prediction. But the point is, we're trying to predict people, and specifically, what are the behaviors that are driving high performance? And so that's why you need data. And so what we ask you for is 2 sets of data within your business. So one, we ask you for assessment data. So we want your people to go through this instrument, super easy, it's mobile enabled, take it on phone, takes 25 minutes. You take it, I know everything about you. What favorite color, where you want to live.
Yeah. Austin?
Oh,
Favorite color, that changes on the week. Maybe it's red this
Maybe
week.
it's red
I don't
today,
know.
yeah.
We'll see. Yeah.
so we learn everything about you.
Yeah.
And then we gather performance data from your business, and we build a custom performance profile. And by collecting these 2 pieces of data together, we have a very objective picture on what drives performance from a behavioral, cognitive, and cultural perspective. And so this is the cleanest way of doing it, and therefore the most predictive way of getting about it. And ultimately what we're looking for, when you think about it, is separation, right? So think about your employee staff. What we're trying to help you understand is what makes your highest performers so unique and different.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this the last time is, even as a small organization with a smaller team, I hit those same issues. I have high performers, and I want to replicate them and have them fit into this culture that we have at RPI, and it's very difficult. We keep trying different things all the time too.
Yeah.
As soon as we get our cloud suite up and running, we're putting this talent science in.
Putting it in first, Melissa.
First, yes.
For those of you watching, you're putting it in first. It's immediate return.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But basically what we're looking for is, like, going back to what we're talking about in college recruiting. So one of our customers is NASA. They use us to hire rocket scientists. Pretty stinking cool.
That is.
And what they found is that, not surprisingly, they hire really smart people. And so cognitive ability, who cares?
Yeah.
It's not driving high performance. It's just everybody is.
Yeah.
And so what they found is that, like on this example, all of their high performers and all of their low performers are really smart. So great. It's not
That's
predicting
not a
performance. It's
differentiator.
just what you're doing.
Okay.
And so what we look for is, one, not where everybody is, but we look for where there's separation between your high performers and also your low performers. And where we see this kind of a relationship, that clearly tells us that that's
That's the
driving
spot.
high performance. Yeah. So the fly in the ointment comes back to the fact that, A, we have a super cool computer that's patented that does this analysis for us. There's about 11 million calculations that go into it.
Okay.
A ton, right? So it's smarter than the smartest industrial psychologists out there.
Yeah.
But the problem that we got to rely on is data. And so this comes back to your question about ERP. So if you're building this model based off of data and based off of your people, a lot of our customers and prospects say, well, that's great. I like basing it off of my own people, but my problem is that I don't think we have the right people in the business today. Do you hear that in your business line of work?
Definitely hear that. And I mean, sometimes it's because nature of the business. If it's, public sector, sometimes people just don't leave. They stay there and retire. Sometimes it's because they don't have an option. They've got a very small pool of candidates because they're in a hard to fill type of place, their location. And then sometimes it's just they've always done it a certain way, so they just kind of keep moving, the whole warm body type thing.
Right. So we say to that, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, right? Because so when someone says, hey, I don't want to build a profile off of my people because I don't think I have the right people, that's pretty mercenary. Like, you have these people and you've probably had them for a long time. So what are you going to do? Like, completely just leave them to one side and then go in a different direction?
Yeah.
So we kind of say to that, for real? Like, you don't have one person? Like,
That's usually a mixed bag. I'm
yeah,
gonna be honest.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're telling me, I mean, in any organization, there's the 80-20 rule, right? But we're saying, okay, let's just say we cut that in half. You got to have at least 10% of your workforce that you want to replicate that are doing the right thing. And we hear this a lot in retail and public sector that, I don't like the people that I have. I'm like, okay, you don't know everybody in your business. I'm sure there's some people who you walk into a shop and they're actually delivering good service, or you walk into an agency and you actually, get what you need.
Yeah.
So we say, guys, come on, let's use data, and the data is going to tell us if you do or if you don't have the right people for that role.
Okay.
The second thing we hear a lot is, and this goes back to the ERP question again, is, can I measure performance accurately today? Do you hear that much?
Definitely. I mean, again, it's that subjectivity that one person, you have 100 different appraisal forms because everybody's like, no, I can't use the one that HR is using. That doesn't reflect what I want to find out about my people.
Right.
And then once you have so many different questions, when you try and look at your whole population, your reporting and analytics are completely off because they're not measured against the same benchmark, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can help you with that. So we have a bunch of industrial psychologists. So our point of that is, fair enough. It's hard to measure performance accurately. But the great thing about this is that we have industrial psychologists that come on staff, and rather than help you to predict like the behaviors that you want, they help you through this whole performance conversation to say, where do you want to go? If you're selling widgets today and you want to get to relationships, or if your patient care is at this level and you're trying to get to this level, let us help you get there, and we're going to help you measure it accurately. So we can help you with these points.
Okay.
And think about it, that's what these guys do every single day. And the last thing we see a lot is, hey, I'm trying to be something better than I am today, which we hear a lot too. You hear that a lot?
I mean, there are so many organizations that are, especially in healthcare, that are grabbing up different affiliates, buying different organizations out, and they've lost their personality because now they have 10 or 15 different organizations that make themselves up, and they have to figure out who are we now that we're this conglomerate.
Right.
Generally.
Right. And our perspective is, hey, fair enough. Like, we're all trying to be better than we are today. But let's base our goal and our trajectory off of data rather than assumptions, right? So let's use your people and your data to get us where you want to be. Let's not, like the JCPenney's example where they brought on board the CEO from Apple. Like, their goal, a little bit misguided, right? I mean, they tried to change too quickly, and it failed. So that's our perspective. Like, don't go kind of thinking that you can get there overnight. Like, let's base profiles off of data and predictive models off of data, and we'll help you get to where you want to go. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, cool. So that's the concept.
Okay.
Once we help you build these profiles, just to show, kind of the process of how it works, it's super easy. So you, as an individual, can take the instrument, and it instantly will tell you kind of which jobs you should be hired into, where you're going to be a best fit, and then we'll help you to hire someone for that model. And then once they're in the business, we'll help you therefore to kind of develop them, coach them, and promote them in a very intuitive and easy fashion. So that's the idea, but it's really cool because, thinking about getting to the next level, like, we can help you understand where is someone the ideal fit from a selection perspective. And then
and in your example of, I've got nobody that's great, well, maybe you do, they're just not great in the position they're in right now.
Right.
This would help you see how to shift your population around.
Exactly. And so that's so prevalent right now. Like, I was in Goodman Manufacturing, a big AC manufacturing company based in Houston, owned by Daikin out of Japan.
Okay.
And their challenge is that their culture is we keep people for years. Like, they invest in people. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we consider this concept of succession planning in a different manner? Like, rather than you've got a specific path that you go up, you go from sales rep, sales manager, senior manager, director of sales, yada, yada, yada. How do I consider someone who may be in marketing today, but I should put them into field ops, or I should put them over into product development, or whatever it is. Like, this is how you do it, because basically you take a pinprick of their blood, and then you can compare their behavioral DNA against any profile that we've built to start thinking about succession planning and development differently. So it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
And the stuff is, the good thing is it works. So this is one example of a security company. So this is really interesting. They hire people to drive trucks full of money around.
Okay.
Didn't one of those just get hijacked?
None of our
Always.
Customers, it was like the employee's first day or something.
Really?
The headlines,
No.
None of our customers.
yeah.
They should be a customer of ours.
Yeah. It's the very first day the dude tried to hijack the truck.
So these guys drive around trucks with thousands of dollars stuck in the back of their truck and a gun. Kind of difficult.
Yeah.
And so they need to hire people who can not only act responsibly with a weapon, but also act responsibly with thousands of dollars in cash.
Right.
And so we built a profile, and they're also sales guys, by the way.
Oh.
So we helped them build a profile of their ideal people, and they put it in place. And so what's interesting is that when they used it, they found that people were not only selling more, but staying longer as well. So those that were hired and we did not recommend, you can see 818 people, they underperformed significantly when we compared with those that we hired and they were recommended. So they sold 23% more per month.
Wow. And that would be not something you would have thought about. You would have thought about the being
Safety.
responsible
Yeah, exactly.
and being trustworthy and
Yeah.
and been fine with those two, and the third is just kind of icing.
Yeah.
But now your icing is now your cake when you're starting to
Exactly.
get those sales up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something else that we found that's really interesting about this customer is they measure integrity. So integrity matters to them, people who lie or cheat. And so they used our software, and they also used a competitive product to detect integrity. And they found that it was a duplication of effort, because basically if you scored really well in our software, you also scored really well on the integrity test. And so they were, by using just our software, it enabled them to kill two birds with one stone. So the link between integrity and kind of the right behavioral DNA, very, very strong. Yeah. We're presenting at RELA, at the retail we've got a whole white paper on that. It's really interesting. And then this is just another organization that has a bunch of guys driving trucks out there for uniform providers. Again, sales organizations selling to healthcare, selling into restaurant organizations. Without talent science, they were struggling with turnover. And then once they implemented talent science, they had a huge reduction in turnover. So a 50% reduction in turnover.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is how you measure the impact this is having on the business.
And then there's that organizational change there, when you're keeping the same employees and retaining that, institutional knowledge, that's when your organization can really start shifting. If you're not constantly just trying to, burn through people and turn and burn and then
Exactly.
retrain,
How the hell do
retrain.
you improve if this is where you're at, right? So you got to solve this problem, and then you can start to take your organization to the next level.
There's
So
significant direct costs and turnover and getting rid of people and hiring people.
Right.
It's just that alone, even if you got no additional benefit, save you a ton of money.
a ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah, that's direct cost savings.
Yep. Exactly. So that's the story. It's pretty good.
Okay.
I just thought
Yeah.
I'd say, before we finish, again, it takes 8 weeks to implement. So super easy.
So easy.
If you're implementing GHR,
Yeah.
if you're implementing,
Because this can happen during, the planning and discovery phases of your implementation are generally 6 to 8 weeks. And that's heavy on your implementation partner trying to create all of your project documentation, your project charter, going through these discovery interviews. So your people aren't exactly doing things in the new system quite yet. So that's that perfect time to be
Yeah.
able to do that.
and most importantly, like an organization's IT organization is not involved with implementing talent science. So there's no burden on your IT team or your
Resources,
IT
yeah.
resources or anything like that.
Okay.
All we need is basically someone in talent management to help us drive this project. And we provide you with a dedicated customer service manager who's responsible for getting you from here to here in 8 to 10 weeks.
Yeah.
We provide you with a industrial psychologist, a integration specialist, and also a training specialist. And our team does all of the heavy lifting. So,
And this is already part of the cloud suite
Amen.
offering, so it's not even extra.
amen.
The software itself is not extra.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah,
So put it in,
yeah.
make it work, change the business,
Yeah.
and then you've got a halo over your head for implementing a product that is going to change the business. It's going to be super easy to get up and running, and it's going to work really well.